Hi, EREZ. Welcome to the Investor Talk. How are you today?
Good, thank you. Hi, Max. Very good.
Thank you for coming. Thank you very much for coming and for
Pleased to be here.
sharing with us your experience, knowledge, and tips for all the funders watching the video. So let's start giving an introduction on yourself.
Sure. So, as I said, I'm very pleased to be here and take part of the show. So my background is a little bit diverse, and I started my career more in the technology, deep tech area, serving as an officer in tech unit here. I was born in Israel, born and raised in Israel. Then spent several years in IT companies as a solution architect. And with the time, I moved more to towards the business side of things. So I was an entrepreneur, established two companies, which were both acquired in early stages. One of them was in the e-commerce area. The other one was more of business intelligence for brick and mortar businesses. So I spent like 10 years abroad, out of Israel, 5 years in the United States, Texas, which was where I ran my e-commerce company. Then another 5 years in Central America, which was with the venture of the second company. So I gained a lot of experience, international experience, and different go-to-market approaches. Also, about 5 years ago, started doing angel investments, followed some deals, mainly in the technology startup companies, mainly from Israel, but also focus on the North American market. And 2 years ago, I joined, so I wear two hats. One of them is my personal investments as an angel. And the second one, I joined In Capital Ventures, which is a Toronto-based global VC focused on Series A and B investments. And pleasure to be here today.
Thank you, EREZ. Thank you so much. So let's start with geography. In which area of geography you prefer to invest?
So our geography is basically North American, which is with focus specifically on the US market. It might be companies that operate as well in Europe or other parts of the world, but the main focus is in North America, especially the United States.
And how much do you normally invest?
We invest, it varies between $2 million up to $5 million per investment. And it depends if we lead the round or if we join. Also depends on the domain, if we're familiar, if we feel that very comfortable with the domain we invest in the company. So it's probably be a higher check size.
I suppose you do also yield investments, and yield investments are probably the most complicated in terms of many evaluation teams. But where do you find conviction when investing, especially in the early stage? What do you consider most? The team, the company, the product itself?
So it's a great question. I think it's a combination of things that you just mentioned. The first thing I'm looking at is the team. It's very important that the team, the founders, they have the right subject matter experience, expertise for the venture, for the startup that they are establishing. We want to make sure the team is solid, and you need to remember, as a VC, you need to think also about the early stages, A and B, like we invest. You need to think about the next rounds as well. So got to be a team that you feel that they're fundable, that will be likely to raise another round, and this is not their last round. So the team is very important. A second thing that looking for is very important to get conviction is the product market fit. In the early stages, it might be very confusing because sometimes in the seed stage, their company is still looking for their product market fit. They're doing some trial and errors. It takes time and takes time until they get to the right product market fit, and then all they need to do is basically to raise the money for scaling. So I think the team, then the product market fit. Also important to make sure that it's not a niche solution. It's something that not nice to have solution, especially these days in this market, as we all are experiencing. It's very important that the solution, what they sell, the company, the startup, it's not something that going to be cut out at the first budget cut or something of the company, something that would be sticky. So those are the things that I'm looking at.
Thank you. When it comes to investing, we've been going from always see the founders face to face, was absolutely mandatory before the pandemic, and after during the pandemic we adjust ourselves. We go on any video call, and maybe we can even invest without seeing personally, face to face, in person, having met the founders. What's your take on this? How important is for you face to face, or are you confident to invest fully online without even sitting one day, have a coffee or a glass of wine with them?
So it's during the pandemic it was very special conditions for investment. So we invested during the pandemic. It didn't stop us from investments. In a normal situation, what if we can call it now, it's crucial for me to see the team, meet their offices, to visit their offices, to see the organization, to see how they operate. And I think it's must, if possible, to meet the team before making the investment. And again, I'm not saying it's a deal breaker, but it's in a normal situation, for me personally, it's very important to see the team, to talk to them face to face, to feel the vibe, to understand their the culture if they're in the offices. So it's very critical for me. I know, by the way, there are investors that are not. It's okay for them to keep all the way through Zoom or just online, but it's, for me, it's important.
What about how often do you like to meet them? Before investing, when you had to decide if go ahead or not, and after having done the investment?
Yeah, so before we invest in person, I think one time should be enough just to get the feeling, like I said. But we talk a lot before the investment. Before we put the term sheet, we talk a lot. We get as much as information possible from the earlier discussions. So it can be, let's say, a process of 2 or 3 months, just for example, before put a term sheet and make the investment. So almost on a weekly basis, I would say, to get more data, information, and understanding of the company. Then after the investment, we try not to take too much time with the founders, because anyway they're very busy, and it's once in 2 or 3 months, once in a quarter, meeting in person. That's how we do it.
What about the let's say the engagement, the involvement you have with your portfolio? How do you think you will add value to them? Because there are some investors who just invest money and they are not so hands-on. But what about yourself, your fund?
Sure. So this is a big advantage, I think, of for founders working with what we call like smart money, like venture capital. Which we add a lot of value in several different points. So first thing, we help founders. Sometimes they need some help with just making the business model or the pricing model or the go-to-market make it more accurate. If they need some just general advice on how they do things. The other thing, which is more practical, is helping them with the hiring. If they need to hire key positions and they need some connections, some networking from our side, so we are very connected, and we are able to bring a very good C-level positions to the company, which is these days is very helpful for the startups. And the third thing, which is very important, we help them if they need to raise more money from more VCs, or if they need to prepare for the next round. So we are, of course, we're very connected to other VCs. We collaborate with other VCs on some deals, and this is something we help a lot, and we add a lot of value. Also, for preparing to the growth rounds, we help them to prepare the budget, to set the right ask, right amount to raise, and everything in there is very valuable for them.
Thank you. What about the leading? You said you both lead and co-lead, or also follow the investment, yeah?
Yes, so we, it's about 60 or 70% of our investment will lead the round. It's not mandatory for us. It depends what is the domain. If it's something that we feel as a team that we control and we have the right knowledge and experience to lead and understanding of the market, so we take the lead. We do a very comprehensive due diligence, but it's not mandatory. As I said, we follow in some of our investments. We see that there is a good VC or investor that leads the round. In any case, we do our own due diligence. We don't rely on, again, we appreciate other investors, but we have our own methods and due diligence, but basically we both lead and follow.
Thank you. I mean, what about how the portfolio interacts? Do you in some meaning asking or expecting that your portfolio, the company between your portfolio, can have some interaction? Because there are, for example, for what is my experience, many corporate VC, they really like having a portfolio that can actually interact itself, right? What's your point of view here?
Yeah, so that's a very tricky scenario, because it's like you said, it's very natural that portfolio companies will interact with each other, and we try to do some intros to find some matching if one can help, if they can help each other. However, I must say that from my experience, startup companies in their early stages, it's very difficult for them to interact with other startups, because everyone is very focused on their own growth and issues and challenges, and they can only benefit from, let's say, for example, if it's a big companies or big corporate, anyone can help them to scale, but startup helping another startup, it's more, to my opinion, rare. But again, we do, and we have some interactions, some portfolio that are companies that customer and others, but it's not something that, from my experience, can scale and make the changes for them.
What about pivoting? I mean, I believe pivoting is a crucial point in any startup life. And I mean, for what I can see, business plans are written to be changed during the way.
Always.
But what about your advice to founders when it comes to pivot? Many of them, they don't want to pivot. They believe pivoting is the proxy of failure.
Yeah, so pivoting is it's a skill. It's something that it really depends what stage of the company and what is the reason for the pivoting. So we invested in companies that pivoted, and when you talk about pivot, there are different scenarios that we need to initiate. So some companies they, for example, and you're right, every startup, we'll say every, but a lot of startups they start from A and then they change it dynamically, adjust the product, adjust the market. It's very common, but when you talk about pivot, it can be pivot of the product entirely, the product, the technology, how things work under the hood. And it can be also pivot of how they approach the market. So I encourage startups to, before they do pivot, to really deep diving into the market and what's the change that they're going to do. There are some pivots that, say, for example, new regulations or any other constraints from external constraints. But I think pivot is something that in the early stages, it's something that is acceptable as long as the founders understand exactly what they're going towards. And there is another question about pivot. Sometimes we see startups that start with one product or one market, and they generate some revenue, and then they decide to pivot. So there's a question what they do with the legacy system, with the legacy revenue. So that's another aspect and a point that founders need to think of when they do pivot, because on one hand, they need to maintain legacy customers. On the other hand, they don't want to put efforts on this, and they want to go ahead and develop towards the new direction. That's another thing to think about.
That's true, completely true. It's not an easy stuff, pivoting. It's actually, I do believe it's a very tough decision.
Exactly, yes.
But timing in life is everything in business. Unfortunately, if you need to pivot, you had to.
If I may add another point about pivot,
sure.
Is how much money you have in your bank account. It's the runway is a key for this. If you can tolerate this pivot or not. So
absolutely. But in this case, for example, what do you think? What's your advice when founders raise money for 6 months and after 3 months then you start raising money again? I do believe that's pretty killing your business.
Yes, might be killing a business. It also puts some risk and concerns on the investor side. And you can do it once, you can do it in a smart way, understand that you have the right budget for this. But if you start getting in kind of from scratch again, that can be very concern for the investors.
It does. This is personal. Why did you become an investor?
So that's a good question. I started as an entrepreneur and moved to be an investor, and some people call it to move to the dark side. and I think my passion is first for technology and for companies. And I found out that as an investor, I'll be exposed to many bright brains and minds and ideas, and I really like to work with people, to work with entrepreneurs, and to see so much different of companies. So I found this the investor position very interesting. That's the main driver. Obviously, I feel that I have. It's always go by the statistics at the end of the day, but I feel that I have a good understanding of companies because I was an entrepreneur. So from the field, from the operational side, so I feel that I can be be a good investor, understanding their side as well.
I mean, can you give the first three critical points that in the end of the day trigger your decision to invest? Because you see so many startups, but in the end of the day, you need to decide. Maybe 3, 4, 5 of them are pretty similar in terms of quality and business model, whatever it is. Which are for example, the first 2, 3, or the most important trigger points for you to say, okay, I go with them?
Okay, so I think the first point, as mentioned, but I'll elaborate more, is the team, because we need to remember the startup, the journey it's like it's a marathon, and you need to make sure the team is or the founder, someone that you can to be able to overcome the challenges. Like we said. You start with one point and you end in a very different point in the plan. So you need to make sure the founder is or the team are coachable, people that you can work with. You can just go to this journey and feel comfortable, feel that they're transparent, and that they're not sugarcoating everything, and it's really partnership when you invest. So that's the first thing, trigger for me to invest. The second is the demand of the market for this solution. So there are a lot of great solutions, great platforms, great ideas, and you want to make sure that the company and the solution that they provide is aligned with the market. I had an opportunity to invest in a great company with very nice revenue, very nice growth, big logos as their customers. But what they do, it was not getting too much details, but it was in the cloud operations. But it was something that in opposite direction of what I felt, opposite direction of the market. So decided not to invest. So the market demand is the second point. And the third is the go-to-market and execution. It goes together because got to be an interesting go-to-market, something that you feel that's going to be successful for the company. Because you can have the best state-of-the-art technology, product, team, everything, money in the bank, everything. But if you don't have an efficient and working method, how you go to market, how you get your customers, it's worth nothing. So those are the key points.
Thank you. What about pitching? What is the perfect recipe to pitch you and convince you?
I think there is no one perfect pitch that every founder needs to follow, but definitely important in the pitch. First thing, I helped, just on a personal note, I helped some startups to some friends and other friends to raise money, just gave them some ideas, help them to make their deck more sharp for investment, for pitch. And people need to understand they need to put time on the deck. It's not just something nice to send. They need to make sure that the investors can poke a hole in their story. And an investor, sometimes they try to do it. So the first thing is know your stuff. Make sure that you control every single piece of the pitch, invest in your company. And another thing is that a lot of, and especially in the tech world, the founders they put a lot of slides, and a lot of the pitch is focused on the technology and the product, which is interesting, but I would rather have just kind of a high-level what's going on in the product technology, and put more focus again on the go-to-market, on the budget, and how you're going to achieve the next milestone. Another thing, and I published as well as an article about it, is so the founders, they go all the way with the pitch and explain everything, and then we get to the last slide and about the ask, how much money they ask, how much money they raise. And a lot of founders, they don't put too much attention to the planning of the round. So they just, they throw numbers. We raise $5 million. Why? Why 5? Why not 10? Why not 1? And then he said that there are some answers like, because my competitors, they raise this because the talent is very expensive. But this is something for me very important in the pitch. Understand that they put thought on the how much money they raise and how far it's going to take them.
Thank you so much. It's priceless and very valuable suggestion and advice for funders. Now, another suggestion: how funders should approach a venture capital.
How you mean the founder?
Yeah, the many times they just send a cold email. We know cold email are how they are.
Yeah.
How they should find a way approaching venture capitalists.
Yes,
introduction.
That's a very good question, because it's something that founders need to know. It's much better to approach venture capital through a warm introduction. It might sound obvious, but cold emails are very rare to be, I would say, considered seriously, just because as an investor, you want to get some validation or some understanding that this person, this company is legit, and it's someone that knows them already. So it's very important, if possible, to do everything you can as a founder to find the right, and I'm sure today with LinkedIn, with everything, everybody's connected. Get the right person to get you in a warm introduction. It will be much better.
When it comes to IP, how important is for you the IP belonging to the startup, to the founders, and not taking it from outsourcing or from outside?
For us, it's a deal breaker. The IP, the technology must be proprietary of the startup. The core of the business must be proprietary. It might be that you're using some open sources or some other third party to complete some of the product, some features, but the main and the core must be IP of the company. This is because we invest a lot of money in the startup and in the technology, and we want to make sure that it all depends on us. We're not rely on other vendors, AWS, Google, any other third party in the core of the business. If something changes there, pricing changes there, anything that changes that is not under our control can be crucial and can just kill the company. So IP must belong to the company.
Absolutely. I mean, this is my last topic. What would be the best and most promising sector for a founder to start their next business in the coming 3-5 years?
That's a very interesting question. It's been asked about it in one event we had here in Israel. My opinion is going to be already, but it's going to be even more on the fintech sector and the cyber. About the fintech, it's very clear that the finance world is evolving very, very quick. and a lot of the traditional systems and the way of doing business is changing. So I believe this sector is going to be keep growing very rapidly. And the cyber, if everybody is now, you can see that just growing the cyber attacks, and the hackers and the attackers become more and more sophisticated. So I expect this sector to keep growing very rapidly to accommodate the security needs.
EREZ, thank you very much for coming to the Investor Talk. It has been a very great pleasure for me.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care.